It was an ordinary evening. I came home early to cook dinner. He was supposed to arrive in an hour. He had left his phone on the kitchen counter, something that rarely happened. It lay there, blinking with a notification. I wasn't planning to look. Really. But then it popped up. "My love, I miss you. When will she leave?" I froze. The world suddenly went quiet. Even the kettle stopped humming. I tapped it, and everything opened. Messages. At first, just some texts. Then photos. Selfies, voice notes, declarations of love, and yes, photos. The kind that should never be on the phone of someone you're planning to marry. And there she was, my sister. My world, my blood, my rock. When people say everything in my life was perfect, it usually sounds like an exaggeration. But in my case, it was almost true. I had a boyfriend I loved with all my heart. He was thoughtful, kind, a great listener, and he always knew how to lift my spirits. Every morning began with his "Good morning, my little star." And every evening he held me like no one else in the world mattered. We had been together for 3 years. He surprised me on our anniversary, a candlelit dinner, photos from our trips, and even a note. "You are my everything. With you, I found my home." And I had a sister. My younger one, my best friend, the closest person in my life. We shared everything: clothes, secrets, dreams, even silly memes at 3 a.m. If someone had told me she could betray me, I would have laughed in their face. No, we were stronger than any bond. And life went on, peacefully. I worked at a small but stable company. My boss appreciated me, my coworkers respected me, and I could afford to travel, buy takeaway coffee, and even save a little for the future. And that future, I could see it clearly. A wedding, simple but beautiful. A white dress, my dad walking me down the aisle, my sister holding the bouquet. Then a cozy home with a garden, loud Sunday dinners, a dog, kids. And most importantly, I trusted these people. My boyfriend, my sister, my friends, everything felt real, solid, unshakable. You know that feeling? When you go to sleep without fearing tomorrow? When you believe that everything you have is forever? That's the world I lived in. And I had no idea how quickly it would all fall apart. The first warning signs. They almost always come quietly. Not like a siren, but like a faint rustle, the kind you try not to notice. At first, it was little things. He started placing his phone face down more often. He used to leave it anywhere without a second thought, even forget where he put it. But now it was always with him, even in the bathroom. Even when he slept, it was under his pillow. When I asked, he laughed. "Are you paranoid? I'm just playing games or listening to music. Relax." And I really tried to relax. Tried not to pay attention. Because love is about trust, right? Things got harder with my sister too. She used to talk to me for hours, hug me just because, ask, "Are you happy? How is he treating you?" Now she avoided eye contact. She grew colder. Her replies became short, sometimes even sharp. I tried to convince myself, she's tired, overloaded, finals are coming, just a bad mood. But inside, a strange anxiety began to grow. Like I was standing in a perfectly clean room and suddenly smelled smoke. My friends noticed. Once, at a girls' night, Lena suddenly said, "He seems different lately, haven't you noticed?" I tensed up immediately. "What do you mean different?" "I don't know, his eyes seem empty. He's just not the same. But maybe I'm being too critical." Another friend added, "When was the last time you really talked to your sister? She seems on edge lately." And I started to feel that something was wrong. But you know what people do when they're afraid of the truth? They deny it. They convince themselves otherwise. I told myself, "Come on, are you crazy? It's him. It's her. You're just overthinking." Everyone acts weird sometimes. People get tired. It's just your stress. Everything is fine. But inside, the cracking had already begun. My perfect world was starting to fracture thin, almost invisible cracks. And I closed my eyes to them. Because if you don't look, maybe it'll go away? Number, it didn't go away. It was only beginning. It was just an ordinary evening. I came home early to make dinner. He was supposed to arrive in an hour. He had left his phone on the kitchen counter, something he rarely did. It was lying there, blinking with a notification. I wasn't going to snoop, really. But the message lit up. "My love, I miss you. When will she leave?" I froze. The world seemed to go silent. Even the kettle stopped boiling. I tapped it and everything opened. The messages. At first, just some texts, then photos. Selfies, voice notes, love confessions, and, yes, the photos. The kind that have no place on the phone of someone you're planning to marry. And there she was. My sister. My world, my blood, my support. And him, my future husband. I didn't scream. At first, I just sat down, as if my legs stopped working. Then the tears came, not the cinematic kind, but the harsh, uncontrollable ones. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly the phone slipped out. I called him. He didn't pick up. 15 minutes later, he walked in like nothing had happened. I stood by the door, holding the phone. I showed him the screen. I didn't say a word. He went pale. At first, he babbled nonsense. "It's fake. It's not what you think. It wasn't serious." And then he gave up. He sat down on the couch. "We didn't want you to find out like this. It just happened. You and she were always so close. I didn't think it would turn out this way." "You didn't think?" I left before he finished his excuses. I called her. Silence at first. Then a voice cold as ice. "So you found out?" I asked. "Why? Why you?" And she laughed and said, "You let it all slip away. He wanted passion, not your to-do lists for the future. You were always too perfect." That moment, it broke me. I realized I hadn't just lost a man. I'd lost my family. And even myself in that treacherous silence. After that, everything spiraled down. Fast, sharp, without warning. I packed my things in one night. Threw everything I could into a suitcase, didn't even sort it. Clothes, chargers, a few photos, books. The rest? I left behind, let it burn with the life that was no longer mine. I moved into a rented one-room apartment on the outskirts. Gray, unfamiliar just like me. The neighbors fought through the walls at night. I lay on a mattress, stared at the ceiling, and stayed silent. I didn't go back to work. At first, I thought I'd just take a day off. But then I realized I couldn't face people. I couldn't smile. I couldn't pretend everything was fine. So I wrote my resignation. Just let everything go. Stability, career, money. What's the point if you wake up and don't want to live? I didn't eat, barely slept. Got up only to drink some water and lie back down. Friends messaged, called. I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? That I was nothing? That everything I built turned out to be a lie? I caught myself thinking, dark thoughts. Nothing made sense anymore. If the people you love more than life itself can do this, stab you in the back, then what's the point of loving at all? I felt discarded. Not just betrayed. Broken. Like I'd been wrung out and thrown in the trash. And the most painful part, it wasn't the cheating. It was who did it. My sister. The person I shared a room with as a child. Laughed with, cried with, made plans for life with. And him, the man I gave my heart to. My soul. My future. And now here I was. Alone. In silence. No job, no love, no faith in people. Rock bottom isn't when you have nothing. Rock bottom is when you don't want to have anything. When you're already dead inside. And that's exactly where I was. And honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever climb out. One morning, I don't even know why I opened YouTube. Just to fill the silence somehow. I don't remember how that video ended up on my screen. A motivational clip, a woman talking about her life. She went through a divorce, betrayal, bankruptcy, And then she got up, started from scratch, built a business, rebuilt her life. Her voice was calm, steady, like she was speaking directly to me. Sometimes you fall just to learn that you can get back up. Only you decide who you are. And the moment you start, that's the moment you start winning. I turned off the video and cried. But these tears were different. Not from pain, but because for the first time in a long while, I felt something inside me was still alive. Later, I found an old notebook. Worn, beat up. Inside sketches, ideas, business plans I once wrote, website layouts, logo drafts, pricing lists, even a slogan. What you wear says who you are. I remembered how much I loved design, how I adored drawing, mixing colors, creating looks, how I once dreamed of opening an online studio, selling handmade pieces, designer accessories, telling my story through style. But then, life happened. Routines, relationships, other people's dreams. I gave up mine to be good, convenient, loved. And now I was standing there with that notebook in hand, and one thought pounding in my head. Now or never. I had almost nothing. No money, no contacts, no confidence. But I had one thing, a void that needed to be filled. And a faint, nearly forgotten feeling. I can. It wasn't an explosion. It was a spark. But sometimes all it takes is a spark to start a fire. Starting is terrifying, especially when all you have is an idea and a desperate kind of determination. No money, no connections, no real proof that anyone will ever buy what you call talent. I opened my laptop, sat down at the kitchen table, and started with a blank page. At the top, I typed, "My project." I didn't even know what it would be called. I just knew I had to try. The first steps were messy and small. I Googled everything. How to make a website for free. How to register as a sole proprietor. How to set up delivery. Evenings were for tutorials. Nights writing product descriptions and sketching designs. My pillow was a notebook. Sleep was replaced with coffee and doubt. I went back to what I'd known since childhood, making things with my hands. I drew designs, sewed fabric, tote bags, came up with unique prints. Every little detail I poured my heart into. I posted photos on Instagram, wrote captions that weren't just about the product, but about me. Raw, honest, no filters, no pretense. My first followers? Friends, old classmates, a couple of strangers who found me through a hashtag. Not many likes, almost no comments. But someone wrote, "You're inspiring, don't stop." I still remember the night my first order came in. A simple tote bag. Plain print, the words on it, "Take the step." I made it by hand, packed it with trembling hands. Terrified the customer wouldn't like it. Terrified of everything. She paid 790 rubles. A tiny sum. But I stared at the screen blinking with the payment notification and cried. Not because of the money, but because someone believed. Someone chose me, chose my work, my idea. And in that moment, I knew. It's working. Maybe slowly, maybe clumsily. But if I didn't give up, it would grow. I didn't tell my family. Not out of fear of judgment. I just didn't want to hear, "Seriously? That's your business?" I wasn't trying to prove anything to them. I was proving it to myself. That I could build something from scratch. From dirt, from ashes. Back then, I had no idea this was the beginning of a completely different life. But I could already feel it. I was no longer a victim. I was a creator. Sometimes, growth begins quietly. One order, then another. Someone tells a friend, someone shares your post. You don't fully understand what's happening yet, but you feel something is shifting. That's how it was for me. My project, small, warm, personal, began to take on a life of its own. Tote bags, t-shirts, accessories with motivational quotes and original illustrations were selling like hotcakes. People wrote to me, I wear this because it makes me feel strong. You told my story, thank you. Every message like that felt like an injection of belief in myself. Like proof. I didn't just crawl out of rock bottom, I was creating something that helped others. One day, I got a message from a small online magazine. We'd love to interview you. Your story is inspiring. I read that message over and over. Me? A story? Inspiring? That's when a new wave began. The article got thousands of views. Then came the reposts. The first bloggers started sharing my work. I was invited to podcasts, interviews, live shows. People were curious not only about what I made, but about my journey. My strength, my fall. I wasn't just selling products anymore. I was selling meaning. A message. You can be at zero and rise. You can be betrayed and not become bitter. You can be lost and still find yourself. Then came the day I'll never forget. I opened my banking app and there it was. $50,000. I didn't scream. I didn't jump for joy. I just sat in silence and felt tears run down my cheeks. It wasn't just income. It was recognition. It was victory. Not over them, over myself. Over the pain, over the fear. Over the voice in my head that used to whisper, "You won't make it." I was no longer that broken woman, crying on a mattress in a rented apartment. I was a woman who had built a business, a brand, and most importantly herself, from the ashes. I felt my worth again. And now it didn't depend on anyone's gaze. Not a man's, not family's, not society's. I knew who I was. And I knew this was only the beginning. One morning, I got a text from him. From the guy I once built a future with. The one who cheated on me with my sister. I was sitting with a cup of coffee, staring at the screen in disbelief. The message was short, but the words felt like a knife in my back. "Hey, I need to talk. I'm sorry for everything. I was stupid. I ruined it all. Please give me a chance to explain." I didn't reply right away. I couldn't, and my mind was racing. How could I ever forgive him? How do you trust someone again after they shattered your heart? I thought I had left it all behind. But there he was again. Same words, same promises. And there I sat, in silence, phone in hand, not knowing what to do. Forgive or forget? That same week I got another message. From my sister. She usually didn't text me without a reason, but this time, her words were cold, dry. "Hi, you probably don't want to see me. I'm sorry for everything, but I'm in trouble. Things are bad. Can you help me?" As soon as I read it, a chill ran through me. I remembered the way she looked at me the day everything fell apart. No guilt. No remorse. Just cold cynicism. "You let this happen." She had been close all along, hiding everything. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship was a lie. And now she was asking for help. Asking me for support. I sat there completely torn. Forgive? Listen to their explanations? Forget what happened? Help her despite everything? The conflict inside me was growing. Part of me didn't want to be someone who held on to the past forever. But another part, the one that had been broken, didn't trust these apologies. Because these weren't just words. They were ghosts. Ghosts of my past, knocking on my door again. Asking me to believe, to open up again. But I couldn't forget that opening that door once led me to emptiness, to pain, to betrayal. Still, what if this was a chance? What if they truly needed forgiveness? Maybe I could forgive not for them, but for myself. So I wouldn't carry this weight forever. But what was I willing to give? And was it even worth it? I still didn't know what to choose. And maybe I didn't have to decide right now. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't the answer to their mistakes. It's a step forward for you. But I wasn't ready for that step. Not yet. I decided to meet them. Not because I needed anything from them. Not because I expected explanations. I wasn't waiting for apologies. I just wanted to see them and to see myself. He texted me again. "Let's meet, talk." I had no doubt he would repeat the same lines, that he was stupid, that I was right. But I wasn't waiting for excuses anymore. I expected nothing from him. As for her, my sister, she tried to come back into my life as if nothing had happened. With a request for help, with complaints, with yet another story. I couldn't understand how she thought I would just forget, as if betrayal was a minor detail. So I walked to that meeting with a quiet heaviness in my heart. Not from pain, but from the awareness that I wasn't going there to reopen old wounds. I was going to close the cycle. When I arrived at the cafe, they were already sitting there. He had the same expression he wore every time he asked for forgiveness. She sat across from him, looking at me like, "Come on, say something, I'll forgive you, and we'll pretend nothing happened." I sat down across from them, looked them calmly in the eyes, and said nothing. There was no anger, no pain, no tears. I looked at them as if they were strangers, as if I was no longer the girl they had betrayed. And then I said, "Thank you." They exchanged glances, clearly confused. "Thank you for betraying me. Thank you for breaking me. Because you made me stronger." No drama. No yelling. I didn't humiliate them. I didn't scream or try to make them understand what they'd done to me. I didn't fight for their love or attention. I just said what I felt. And that was enough. They sat in silence. Maybe they didn't expect that. He tried to say something, but I was already getting up. Too many words had already been said. I didn't want to waste any more of my time on explanations. I turned and walked away, leaving them at the table. With every step, I felt a release. Not from them, but from myself. From the pain I had carried for so long. I was no longer that girl who doubted, cried, struggled. I was someone else now. Strong. Calm. Certain. I was free. Not for them. For myself. And when I stepped outside, the world felt a little brighter. With every step, I felt lighter. And I realized, true revenge isn't a fight. It's not punishment. True revenge is living your life. Not wasting your energy trying to change someone. Not proving your worth. Just moving forward. And showing those who betrayed you. You broke me, but now I'm stronger, and you have no power over me. I walked away. And I was at peace. Because I was no longer the one they had left behind. I was me. And that was enough. Now I can say with confidence, everything I went through, everything that once felt like the end became a beginning. I stand in this new home. Everything around me I built with my own hands. My business, my projects, my dreams, they became reality. I can look out the window without fearing that tomorrow will be empty again. I'm no longer afraid of failure, because failure became my teacher. Success? It's not just numbers on a screen. It's the feeling of freedom. Freedom to do what I love. Freedom to choose who I want to be with. Freedom to live the life I want. I no longer depend on anyone's opinion. My decisions matter only to me. My life is finally my own. And you know what I've realized? If you've been betrayed, that's not the end. It's not the point where everything stops, it's the point where your rise begins. In the moment when you think you can't get up, you discover strength you never knew you had. You start to see the world differently. Not as a victim, not as someone broken, but as someone who stood tall. Someone who survived the storm and now knows how to steer their own ship. You realize it doesn't matter what happened to you. What matters is what comes next. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe every experience is a chance. A chance to grow, a chance to become stronger, a chance to understand who you really are. So if you're at rock bottom right now, if you're facing betrayal, pain, disappointment, remember, this is not the end. This is only the beginning. You can get back up. You can overcome it all. You can change your life because you already have everything you need, your belief in yourself. And believe me, you are capable of far more than you think. You're not alone. You're not abandoned. We all face challenges, but we don't have to stay stuck. You can start with yourself. Take the first step. Move forward not for someone else, but for yourself. And don't be afraid of the things that once hurt you. They were necessary. They shaped you into the strong, confident, and joyful person you were meant to become. You're already on your way. You've already made the choice. So keep going. You've got this.